It is 9:02, and I'm calling to order the February 13th meeting of the Workforce Education and Equity Committee. So thank you all for being here. We have 2 online, 2 in person, 3 in person, so that's great. Our first act is to approve the January 9th minutes. Do I have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Are there any corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Thank you very much. All right. So what we're going to do today is we have 2 presentations and then several memoranda. And before we get into the presentation, I just want to share a couple of my thoughts about this. I asked for this briefing today because we so often hear about the hiring challenges throughout the city. And so the purpose of this presentation is to help us understand the big picture of talent recruitment for the city. It's our job, colleagues, through the Workforce Committee to help shape policy that will enable Dallas to become the best city in the state of Texas to work. After this presentation and any follow-up, then we will examine retention. That will be at a different presentation. There have been questions about potential duplication with GPFM committee, and we'll work together in understanding the entire progression of work, our role, the we committee in recruitment, with GPFM's role in performance, and then ours again with how we retain the excellent employees we have and want to hire. Chair Willis, who's not on this committee but serves on the GPFM committee, has been working diligently with our auditors to complete a study of civil service and human resources, and we hope to work with them later this spring, perhaps in a joint meeting, for their findings presentation. I hope that everyone was able to study the presentation since we're not going slide by slide, and rather we're going to be highlighting essential points for discussion. The entire presentation, however, is available to the public, and I'm happy to share any public questions that you send with staff. So what we want to make sure is what we're looking for is what are our short-term and long-term strategies to address the City of Dallas's talent sourcing needs, and what are the short-term and long-term strategies to establish a sustainable talent and recruitment service delivery model. Those are the main things that we're emphasizing today. So with that context, please, I want to turn it over to our extremely able team. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so very much, Chair Schultz, and to the members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kimberly Beiser-Tolbert, and I serve as one of our deputy city managers. Thank you for the opportunity to present our talent acquisition update to the committee. We know that talent acquisition is critical, and it is a very important component when we look at our ability to provide city services. As we came out of the pandemic, of course, we learned a lot. We're going to continue as we go through not only this presentation, but as we look forward to the retention presentation that we're going to bring back, we're going to continue to find ways to tighten our belt because we know that the market changes consistently, and that then impacts our ability to acquire and retain top talent. I want to thank the City Council that throughout these last few years, we've had an opportunity to talk with you about many of our strategies, and that support that you've provided to that process has been effective. At the chair's request, we're definitely not going to go through every slide, but we're going to focus on highlighting some of the key pieces that we really do believe will allow for us to think about how do we make sustainable changes and be able to set us up for discussions even through this upcoming budget process. Nina and Jared are both here with me this morning, and I want to thank both of them for the work and the efforts that they continue to put into this process. We have looked at a lot of our low-hanging fruit. Many of the things that you're going to hear from both Nina and Jared today are things that we began to look at on how do we improve our processes and continue to make our collaboration between the 2 departments, human resources and civil service, more effective. As the chair has requested, we're going to jump right into it, and so I'm going to take us to slide number 4. We will plan, Chair, to come back in April to give you the update on the various retention strategies. So if we could go right to slide 4.
Good morning. I'm Nina Arias, Director of Human Resources for the city,
And I'll start by speaking about the full cycle recruitment process, which starts with the job description and ends with onboarding. So as the first step, the hiring manager revises or develops a job description and opens a requisition for posting the job. After that, an HR or civil service recruiter, depending if the job is civil service or non-civil service, will post the job, collect applications, and perform any testing that is appropriate for the position. HR or civil service staff then they perform a first scan of the applicant pool to identify if the applicants meet minimum qualifications. At the city, some hiring managers ask to see all that qualify, while others lean on recruiters to identify the top rated. So that flexibility exists within the system. Then the hiring manager selects the top 3 to 5 applicants and schedules interviews. After the interviews, the hiring manager will make a verbal offer, and that happens if pay is under the budgeted midpoint. Once the applicant accepts the offer, the onboarding team issues a formal offer, the final offer, and initiates the background check and drug screen, completing the pre-employment process. Next slide, please. In this slide, you will see the recruitment process at a glance with the main steps on the left column and the responsible party for each step in the subsequent columns. It shows 3 distinct recruitment processes for civil service, non-civil service, and uniform positions. For civil service and uniform positions, civil service staff does the posting, the first screen, and the testing. From that point on, the hiring manager does the interview, and HR completes the onboarding. For positions that are non-civil service, the hiring manager and HR staff are responsible for all the steps. Next slide, please. As you were able to see in the deck, our look back to 2022 shows that we continue to operate with 2 systems to complete the hiring process. NeoGov, which is a system that was implemented over 10 years ago, which has significant data reporting and role configuration limitations. And Workday, which is our system of record and the system where the hiring process is completed. We are moving the entire process to Workday in 2023, which will allow a simpler, more expedient process, including self-service for candidates and hiring managers, interactive communication and follow-up, and funnel reporting and analytics. In addition, we provided an overview of the positions that were filled in 2022. Those are external hires. We provided an overview of the current market data and highlighted programs and activities implemented to support recruitment and retention at the city. I'm going to go past to slides 12 and 13 to take a few minutes to highlight a few key accomplishments.
Slide 12, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So on slide 12, among the body of work and successes for 2022, I would like to highlight the Gender Transitioning Information Toolkit. This toolkit assists gender diverse employees understand and use the resources available to them at the city and at the community. Also, the Hiring Manager Toolkit, which was a collaborative effort and is explained in more detail later in the presentation. Next slide, please. From slide 13, I'd like to highlight the move to a weekly employee orientation to speed up the onboarding of new hires and the City Diversity Dashboard, which was done in partnership with the Office of Data Analytics and Business Intelligence. Next, I would like to move to slide 17. From this point on, or in the next slides, we have information about the shared Human Resources and Civil Service initiatives of 2022. It provides details on those initiatives which were designed to improve the City of Dallas talent acquisition process. This work resulted in a manager toolkit that contained all the information needed for hiring managers to complete an expedient recruitment process and information about a recruitment manager dashboard that provides directors with current data reflecting the hiring process and hiring data by department. If we could please go forward to slide 20. This slide shows the dashboard for department leadership. I would like to note that they make a few notes and disclaimers regarding the data in the system. The average days between requisition approval and candidate list creation does not differentiate between first candidate list or continuous posting. Also, the average days between the candidate list creation and the offered data position that are left open for continuous posting is not reflected, and it reflects manual data entry for offer date. All those are factors of the limitations that we have in the NeoGov system, which will not be the same situation going forward with Workday. Also, the average days between offer and start may include instances where candidates decline the offer and does not differentiate internal delays or candidate delays. If we could go to slide 21, please. This section shows the positions that are currently posted by type of positions. These are open requisitions in NeoGov. Also, current data showing the average time between the time the requisition is created and the start date, and the average time to hire by department. In addition, this section, the current state section, provides information on benchmark and other data points that we use or will be using in the future, including turnover data and surveys. If we could move to slide 27, please. Slide 27 provides an overview of what are the high-level candidate priorities that help us determine the best way to address expectations of candidates. As shown throughout the deck, the conditions of the market have changed substantially over the last 2 years and since the pandemic. So in the following slides, the slides after, from 27, I believe, through 30, shows a SWOT. We conducted a SWOT analysis to identify what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for each of these 4 candidate priorities. And the SWOT provides us with a roadmap to further develop our talent strategy. I would like to jump to slide 30, which provides details and opportunities from the perspective of the 4 candidate priorities listed in this slide. So going to slide 30. So here are opportunities in regards to compensation, balance, flexibility, and upskilling. The opportunities related to compensation include implementing a pay-for-performance program for executives. That work is underway and is scheduled to be implemented in 2023. Also using whole market comparable data for competitive and hard-to-fill positions and functions instead of comparing just to government organizations. Also, opportunities to improve organizational support for a balanced work-life approach include increasing vacation allowance for professional staff to match the market. Currently, we offer the same amount of vacation to all employees regardless of level, which is definitely not comparable to market, and investing in change management and programs to help managers move to a culture that values work-life balance, because ultimately the employee experience happens at the manager level. Regarding flexible work arrangements, we could provide, actually we identified that an opportunity is to provide a City of Dallas managers training and resources to help move to operation models that take into consideration the need of employees, which is an employee-centered operation model. In other words, we can do the work while taking into consideration the needs of individual employees at the same time. And our opportunities for upskilling include implementing Workday Learning module, which was approved for 2023, and expanding the current educational partnerships, which is underway as well. We have, if we could please move to slide 32. Slide 32 show our 2023 goals and the talent acquisition strategies that our staff are going to be working on, which center around 5 pillars. The first one is to strengthen the city's employee brand, which includes engaging professional resources to develop a cohesive talent acquisition brand to attract candidates to the city of Dallas, highlighting the meaningful work we do and the many career opportunities the city provides. Also observing and actively managing online reviews and our social media presence. And working with hiring managers to invest in candidate relationship management to create a pipeline of candidates for current and future job opportunities. The second pillar is to further simplify and decentralize the hiring process. This includes empowering hiring managers to own and manage the end-to-end process of acquiring talent for their teams, and as a means for creating bench strength for succession planning. The third pillar is to update our sourcing strategy, making extensive use of social media as well as employee, professional, and diversity networks, and utilizing third parties to supplement staff. The fourth pillar is to improve the candidate experience, continuing to updating and refining our processes and practices based on the feedback from hiring managers and through candidate surveys. And the fifth pillar is to leverage data and technology. Includes the implementation of Workday recruitment module and completing the 2023 external recruitment dashboard in collaboration with the Office of Data Analytics and Business Intelligence. If you could please move to the next slide. In addition, we're currently working on a process improvement focusing on onboarding, which is meant to streamline and document the process in preparation for the Workday implementation. As part of the project, we have identified several pain points which we are in the process of addressing, including the need for different approach to our background checks and drug test contracts, the requirements in job descriptions, and simplifying workloads. The next slide, please. Workday recruitment implementation is scheduled for completion in 2023. The detailed process is listed in this slide, which starts with City Council approval and ends with production in November. Deployment in October and full production in November. This work will include input, or the implementation project will include input from all hiring departments and will be done in collaboration with Jared and the Civil Service Department team. Next, Jared will share with you about the work of the Civil Service staff. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you, Kim. Good morning, Madam Chair, and to the Workforce Education and Equity Committee. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Jared Davis, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Civil Service Board Secretary and Department Director. If I could really start our conversation this morning on slide 39. Upon joining the city in this capacity and attempting to give leadership to the Civil Service Department, we went out on an exercise at the very beginning of conducting a SWOT analysis and really listening to our stakeholders and everyone in the organization to understand what are our opportunities, what are we good at, what are we not good at. And an outcome of that, and really why I want to start the conversation today on slide 39, is out of that we really came up with 3 funnels of work, if you will, around talent attraction in civil service, around talent assessment, and around operational excellence. And the talent attraction piece is how do we evolve our practices and position the city of Dallas to attract talent to the city in our open opportunities. Secondly, how do we assess that talent once we know that there's an interest or someone's attracted to work for the city of Dallas? And then internally, how do we continue to get better in terms of operational excellence? And so you will see all of our work and strategies and outcomes really tied back to those 3 strategic focus areas, because that's really what we believe it's going to take in order to position the city of Dallas as a premier public service employer and be able to recruit talent into the organization in a timely and efficient manner. Which brings me to slide 41, which we've really developed are the civil service talent imperatives. These are the things that we feel that we must do to position as civil service has 83% of the city of Dallas's workforce in terms of its positions that are considered civil service positions and for which the department is expected to provide sourcing and screening support. Here are our imperatives. Number one is we have to expand our candidate reach. You saw in the deck that the applicant pool is drying. I think we know both within our own walks of life and as hiring managers or even in your personal lives, recruiting talent is harder, and so we have to expand our reach and really, really rethink how we do that. And the only way we can reach candidates in this century is through our strategic marketing, branding, and social media efforts, because that's where the candidates are. We need to intentionally continue to gather and utilize market, career, and position data to develop and refine talent sourcing strategies. By that I mean that we have different data points as we interact with different jobs and positions and career series across the city, that we should be using that market data to give us feedback on how to get better at that. By way of an example, within the Civil Service Department, we have begun to identify what we call 15 to 20 critical and hard to fill positions. Some of those are trades, some of those are professional in terms of mid-professional careers, but we've identified those and trying to understand, A, what are the skills that those incumbents are performing, so as we go to the market, we have a better idea of what we recruit. And so that's what I mean by utilizing market data to develop and refine our sourcing strategies. Create career interests and establish talent pipelines into critical civil service and public sector careers. I think that we're doing this a lot independently, but bringing that into a strategy and a clear line of sight of working across our partners of Dallas College, Dallas ISD, and others to bring that into a singular focus on how do we develop those pipelines, be it at the CTE level or at the P-TECH level within our ISDs. I know that we recently had some briefing about those educational partnerships in another committee, but I think we're continuing to work on that and to bring that into focus. And then our fourth imperative is incorporate deliberate equity planning as the framework of the organization's talent strategy. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we move down into talking about the racial equity plan. Turning very at a high level to page 44, slide 44, just a highlight of our 2022 recruitment and outreach highlights. We work with a lot of hiring departments, as you can imagine, across the city, providing hiring events, and of course in conjunction with Human Resources, supporting the employment initiatives of Goodwill, Dallas College, Dallas ISD, and a huge partner of ours. I glanced at Councilmember Thomas back right before the pandemic, working with Workforce Solutions of Greater Dallas with our Think Ahead Thursdays and moving out into the community. And so we continue to do a lot of that work with helping applicants skill up and be prepared for the interview and hiring process for employment opportunities here at the City of Dallas. If you look on page 45, I've outlined the five civil service priorities, which again are tied back to our strategic focus areas. Develop, launch, and monitor our operational deliverables, promoting and advancing our goals that are laid out within our racial equity plan. We need to further our collaboration with marketing and of course, Human Resources to develop, and we've already started the groundwork of that discovery process to launch a comprehensive marketing and branding campaign that highlights and builds awareness for the City of Dallas employment opportunities. Also within that work will be a large opportunity for us to engage in employee storytelling, because that's what's going to enhance the employee's value proposition in terms about what is our culture, what does it mean to be a public sector employee, and so we are identifying and doing a lot of that discovery work so individuals can understand exactly, what is a day in a life, what it means being a public servant or a civil servant here at the City of Dallas. Continue to work with ITS and Human Resources to make sure that we leverage the opportunity to effectively assess and integrate our new applicant tracking system to realize all of the efficiencies that could be gained there, and continue to work internally in the department to hear our trial board hearings in a timely fashion. I now very quickly want to point our attention to slide 46. We've seen this slide before, I think, in other instances, but I want to talk about it this morning because I think it's important. The graphic here talks about, the adoption of the racial equity plan and the great work that we've done as a city. But as you notice, the graphic puts us at the bottom of this mountain. And as we go up, transcend that mountain, that's when we get to the big audacious goals that we really seek out to do. And so at the bottom of that mountain is really that hard work of developing department progress measures, and we've been working with our partners in equity to do that, and I think that's important in getting it right on the front end in order to realize these goals of equity internally to the organization, because we've never done this before. And so there has to be some baselining that happens, and you'll see that I've laid that out on slide 49 in the Civil Service Department progress measures. Is we want to understand the following in terms of moving this work of equity forward at the city. Expand our recruitment efforts, of course, to increase diversity of candidates for city employment. But by the summer, provide a clear and expansive recruitment and promotion review process that identifies the top 5 employment and promotional opportunity barriers within uniform positions within the city. Chair Schultz, I heard you in your opening comments talk about the other audit work and the other work that comes along to help us understand what we can do better. I think all of that will inform and guide, number 2, for example, in our racial equity work that lies ahead of us. The same is true for item number 3, is understanding what are those barriers to employment and promotion as it relates to civil service positions on the civilian side and not uniform. Then fourthly is we know that the only way we can really advance equity work from an operational perspective is to create conversation, collaboration, and dialogue around what's working well, what's not working well. And so you'll see in the 4th item, the recruitment exchange of hiring managers and department directors to help us share best practices and refine our actual tactics as we pursue what we understand those barriers and opportunities to be as it relates to racial equity. And then on slide 50, you see by the next fiscal year, you recommend an equitable and inclusive hiring and recruitment policy. We as a city, if we're going to talk about equity in terms of hiring internally, we have to have a policy or something to guide that work, and that's what you see in item number 5. And then you see we start moving forward with those baseline numbers in terms of 2027. And I think we could have gotten to here without that work of Dr. Rainey and Dr. Wilson within our equity group to be able to lay this piece down, considering the large responsibility of employment we have when we talk about racial equity, which then I conclude with on page 51. Here are opportunities that come out of our priorities, this conversation today, opportunities to continue collaboration with human resources and others. Number 1, take intentional steps to create a City of Dallas-wide integrated recruitment outreach and partnership plan to support immediate and long-term recruitment goals, as we've mentioned. This is how we build a talent pipeline and formal internship and apprentice opportunities. Continue to evaluate civil service sourcing needs, service delivery needs, current capabilities, and identify those solutions to better meet those needs. And third, formalize our marketing, branding, and outreach strategy that includes a diversified portfolio of advertising and marketing efforts designed to enhance the City of Dallas's employee brand awareness and our value proposition. We see other public employers taking very daring and bold steps to advertise the opportunity and to tell the story about what does it mean to work for the organization. And I think these opportunities lie in front of us today, and it's a part of our work plan as we move forward in the current year, rather. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation and turn it back to Kim.
Thank you very much, Jared. So going to our next steps, which are on slide 52. Of course, today, again, was an opportunity for us to really get feedback on a lot of the things that you've heard today about opportunities that we believe that we have between both departments. And a lot of that will inform some of the budget discussions that we will have with the city manager on the front end and be able to bring back any policy decisions that we need from the City Council. We will also continue to look at delivering on the goals and the strategies that you've heard from both departments. The onboarding process improvements is a big piece of this, and we would definitely come back and provide an update on how that process improvement, a lot of the goals that we have around that, how we're doing, and definitely coming back to this committee in April to talk more detail about retention strategies. The partnerships with our departments is key. We know that a lot of our departments touch a lot of external partners, and we definitely want to understand better some of those unique needs but at the same time, look at ways that we can augment our staff, and sometimes that might require third-party resources. The compensation study that we started and that we will continue, it's not a one-time thing. I think it's really going to allow us to continue to make those adjustments. When Nina talked about the different things that we have to do across compensation and balance and then flexibility, that compensation piece is a critical component of that. The market continues to change, and because we know that, this briefing is something that we need to do on a regular basis, Chair Schultz, to continue to update you on how well the strategies that we've put in place are working. With that, I'll stop, and we're welcome to take questions at this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was a great presentation. I hope my colleagues and the public have a chance to read through all the slides, because there was a tremendous amount of work put into this, and I thank you all for doing that. I'm just going to ask one quick clarifying question, then I'm going to open it to everybody else. The goal is to work till about 10 o'clock on this topic, and then we'll move on to the next. My question is, since both of you shared so much of the importance of branding and marketing and all of that, and frankly, I think the public doesn't care whether it's civil service or HR. That's an internal challenge that we face here. Are you going to be doing it as one campaign? Is it going to be worked together? If you could answer that question, then I'll turn it over to my colleagues that are here first, and then I'll turn to those in the virtual world.
Yeah, Kim, I'll take that because I spoke most about it. Absolutely. At the end of the day, I agree with you wholeheartedly. The public, a potential job applicant, they don't care about what department is. We have to tell the whole story of the city of Dallas. So that means that we have to cast light into what does it mean to be a Parks and Rec employee? What does it mean to work in community courts, which is out of the city attorney's office? When we talk about taking care of all of the talent needs, that's all of us, and so that's going to require all of us.
Perfect.
Yes.
That's great to hear.
I would like to add that we also include our communications and marketing department, as this is actually part of the communication of the city as a whole. So this will be done in collaboration between our two departments, but also the communications and marketing department.
Terrific, and I hope that when we bring in experts on branding, that we do a deep dive into that, because the branding exercise, 90% of branding is listening to the people out in the field, and it's going to take an external listener, I think, rather than a fellow employee per se. Okay, so let me start here. Any comments, questions from anyone here at the Horseshoe? Really?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say thank you for all the hard work. I think it's really important that, one, we as the council understand some of the challenges in terms of getting the best employees or workforce that we can internally, and then at the same time understanding the process. It can be complicated, and this committee is the committee to provide oversight as relates to workforce. So I want to commend you for the detailed presentation, and thank our chair for bringing this to us.
Thank you. Chair Narvaez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me, but one, thank you. The presentation is excellent. I think we're really going after what we need to be doing, catching up to the private market as far as staff goes. And I can tell you that whatever was sent out before the weekend or over the weekend about retention got this place talking, because I received copies of it so many times where employees were asking, is this real? Is this real? Is this real? It's like, yes, it's very real. Because I think that as we've been here working together and y'all have been kind of just checking out everything, I think we're noticing that a lot of people in this building don't see us as caring about them in the same way. And, I can't speak for decades of the past, I can only speak for now, but I think they're finally seeing that this council respects them and that you all have been given the green light to do whatever it takes to take care of them. And I think also it really, I'm trying to still continue to find silver linings from the pandemic, because, we lost so many people, but the silver lining from it is that we kind of, I think, saw our culture differently at City Hall, and then also working by ourselves at home, right? When, with the monitor and no human interaction. And so I think that that's also a positive effect. I was literally just talking about this yesterday at a Super Bowl watch party, and we were kind of communicating about the pandemic, and folks interesting to see that people are still just starting to get back out into the real world. And they were talking about work and how they were like, I never realized how much they said something to the effect of, I'm never going to complain about having to go to work ever again, because during that year and a half or ish, she was like, all I wanted to do was go to work, you know? So it's really interesting that what we saw from all of this. So by also experiencing all of that, I think you all were able to come up with an excellent package, an excellent way to help folks and work with folks we've got to do a better job of figuring out where people are and how do we meet them there. And there'll be some individuality, right? Like, we got to fix it this way, or we got to do it that way. And then if we continue to do that and show our employees, our staff, the people that are working hard here every day, that we care about them and we're willing to work with them, I think we get even more out of them, higher productivity and whatnot. So let's continue doing it. I hear a lot of positive things now from staff in the building that are willing to talk to us, and then, but it's much more positive than it used to be. So when I first got here, so excellent. Let's continue the trend. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll follow up with that. It's so encouraging to have staff stop us in the hallway and thank us for some of the changes that we've implemented and made. With that, I didn't really see much an extent on exit interviews and trying to figure out why people are leaving when they're leaving.
Yes, I believe we have a slide that talks about the other data points that we utilize, and among those are the surveys and exit interviews. Not all employees give us feedback, but those that are willing typically are talking about the same points. They're talking about compensation, they're talking about flexibility, and they're talking about work-life balance. They're also, so we hear replicated in the exit interviews, what we hear also through our engagement surveys, which is about the amount of work, the type of work, and flexibility within their environments. That's what the employees are telling us.
Sure, no, and I appreciate that, and I think, we've done a lot to bring in strengths and opportunities, but that person has to be willing to be a public servant, right? And so you have to find that balance. On page 20, we have a graph for the days it takes to, is that it? Yeah, the dates to creation from hire date. Can we get the actual numbers in that? Because looking at the graph is very difficult to.
Yes, there is that graph, and the specific details are in the appendix.
Okay, perfect.
In more detail. If I may go to the appendix on page. I'm sorry.
Councilmember Moreno, while Nina is going to the actual detail in the appendix, I do want to make a couple of comments about slide number, put my glasses on here, slide number 20. One of the things that I think we have learned, and I know we shared this with the chair, we want our data to be reflective of what we know the situation really is. This dashboard that you see the data on slide 20, we believe that there are some challenges with some of that data. Nina talked about some of the unique things that happen at the department level that may not be incorporated here. So the average days that you see here might not be 100% the average days. As we work through the implementation of Workday, which we hope to have that wrapped up by October of this year, we believe that we'll have a more robust data set that really does tell that true story, because it will give us an opportunity to take into consideration some of the unique things that happen that right now are not incorporated in that data. So I just wanted to make sure to kind of give you that disclaimer as you're looking at the details about slide number 20, that we know that there are some challenges with the data and we want to continue to perfect that. So thank you.
And I found it's actually slide 23, which talks about the average days between requisition creation and hire start. So we have, this is a dashboard, and I'll be happy to maybe provide more detail one-on-one.
That would be great. And look, the reason I raise that question is we ask ourselves, who's looking for a new job? And it's usually people who are in a toxic workforce. It's usually people who are trying to advance their career, people who are ready to make that next step, and people who are not willing to stay in that job that they're currently in for more than 2-3 weeks. And so I believe we're shrinking our pool, and so there's some streamlining that we need to do. But I just want to thank you all, and I'll close with this. As we speak about equity, just reminding, as we look at departments' leadership across the boards, that we keep that in mind. And I'll pick one in particular because of my background with the Park Department. We need to take a closer look at our diversity and inclusion in that department. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go to Chair Blackman. Do you have any questions?
I do. So back to that slide that showed, from, I guess, soup to nuts, so to speak. Have you gone down to look at it per department? I know it looks like we're doing it across the whole organization, because in my involvement with permitting, that was their main concern, is that they couldn't get them, signed up and in the seat fast enough.
If you'll go to slide 24.
Yes, this dashboard actually allows the
There we go.
ability to filter by department, so we can look by period of time and also by department. And in slide 24, the dashboard shows information on the number of days, the average days to hire per department. So you can see each one of the departments, and again, you can slice and dice this data. The chart that you see on slide 23 can also be done either as a whole organization or as a segment of the organization or by department. So we can identify for each one of the steps where each department is having maybe opportunities for improvement.
So you are working with those departments to make sure that they're not at and what is like an average process time? The average days per, what is a benchmark that you want to get in?
Slide 25 shows two benchmarks. One is from the Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey of the Department of Labor, from the U.S. Bureau, of Labor Statistics, which is what is, the most, the authority that is recognized in the field, but also from the Society of Human Resources Management. There's some benchmark that shows what is the standard for, according to the different types of employee, for executives, professional managers, and all other employees. There's a disclaimer in that slide. There's some of that data we're able to collect now, and some is difficult because of the NeoGov system that we have. Once we move into Workday, we're expecting to use the full benchmark.
So the data is not actually accurate? Is that what it can be kind of, like, it's not apples to oranges? It's not apples to apples, it's apples to oranges?
I'm sorry, yes, the data is accurate. The data is not, we're not able to slice it and dice it exactly to fill into the buckets that the benchmark calls for. So it's data that is just, the system just give us segments of the process, and we cannot tease out certain information that will allow us to be able to compare. So when we're saying, it's not that the data is not clean, or the data, actually, we just went through a data cleansing project in which we remove all data that was all, recruitment processes, et cetera. So the data is clean. It's just that doesn't allow us to do a comparison because the reporting capability within NeoGov is very limited.
Councilwoman, if I may, I would like to call on our director of our data analytics, because she has actually been working alongside both departments in how we look at the current data that we have. And I believe, Britta, if you could come out for just a minute, because I really want you to understand the context of why we're talking about the data in particular, and how we believe that the robust data that we're looking for will be better served once we get to the Workday implementation. Britta, thank you.
Kim, if I just may, just before
I'm sorry, Jerry.
Before Britta begins, I think I want to just underline, because I think it's going to add some understanding to what I think Britta's going to share. When we implemented NeoGov, long before I think any of us were here, we implemented the system as we implemented it. It's hard for us in terms of the data is true and accurate. There are just times that we cannot extract data or drill down to the exact level of who's performing what in order to diagnose it. But it puts us in the ballpark of where our challenges are and what our opportunities are. But in terms of, you know, who's the person actually in the system holding up the time, we didn't configure the system that way, and that's the beauty for me of even having this conversation and going through this exercise, is because we can then take those lessons, and as we look at Workday implementation, build in that capability, because we know that A, we need it, and B, we know that the system will provide that for us. And I think Britta will talk a little bit more about that in her discussion.
Good morning, Britta Anderchuk, Chief Data Officer for the City of Dallas. Thank you for having me this morning. One of the fun things is that when you ask questions of the data, you get to learn what its strengths and weaknesses are. And so the types of questions that we have wanted, these deep dive into where is the baton passing, as Jared mentioned, our system is not ideally configured for that. So we're doing a much deeper dive into validation. We're trying to figure out what other systems that we have that we can connect to help us get more data points, as well as what can we do to create a more uniform entry of the data. This NeoGov data, we have multiple people in every department entering data. It's not always done in precisely the same way. So we have a little bit of wiggle room, or what we would call error in the data in a statistical sense, meaning the range is variable. It's not perfect and precise. And so I think that that is what Ms. Tolbert wanted me to share, but we are working through that process now. We are meeting with representatives from each department to go and help us refine and kind of narrow those numbers. And I'm happy to answer any other questions you have.
Right, and as Chair Blackman continues, I just want to point out, I don't want us to belabor this point and use it as a reason not to look at what we have. Thank you, Chair Blackman. Please continue.
I actually see it as a way that you actually create strategies and then fund those strategies. But if the data's not, clean, and you're right, data, it is about who puts it in and stuff, then we need to make sure, because it is hard to create a system that works if you don't have a full accounting of what the system is to begin with. So back to the data part of this. So what is your timeline to get it? I mean, are you going to make the budget? Because we're going to start looking at the budget, and you're going to have to create a plan, because the idea is to get people working and in the seats sooner than later.
So I'll start. So the City Council approved the implementation. The dollars that we have in the budget now allows us to move forward with the full implementation of the recruitment module for Workday. That process is underway. We went out to get a third party to come in who will actually guide that implementation of that piece, and we hope to have that up and running by October. That is not going to stop us from doing the strategies that both Jared and Nina laid out today. All of the process improvements that we've talked about this morning, we're going to be moving those forward and continue to work with Britta and her team for the data that we have available to us now. We believe that the drill down, by going into each department and talking to departments around what they're doing, is also going to add value, because it's one thing to get to the work that's happening between the two departments, HR and Civil Service. But we know that we also have some departments that do their own hiring. For example, Park and Recreation. To a lot of extent, they handle pretty much that, cradle to grave process. So we do believe that there are opportunities that we can begin to implement the things we've laid out this morning, bring those back to the council, and begin to talk about what we might need going into the budget. So we will definitely be ready for those conversations, Councilwoman Blackman. Thank you.
And Kim, I suspect that as things become more clear, that you may need to change some strategies or add more strategies. So we need to be flexible in that space.
Absolutely. I think it would be beneficial for us when we come back for the retention briefing in April, Chair Schultz, that maybe we come right back after that and then talk about some of the needs that we might have, maybe during the month of May going into the budget discussions, because we need to get that out of the way before we actually start working on the budget.
Okay, so yeah, my thing is to get people in the door faster and sooner, because we don't want them they could get another job offer, they could decide, make decisions, they could decide to move. We just get them in the door and get them working as fast as we can. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Blackman. Chair McGue?
No questions. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you. And let me point out that they're going to be having a talent discussion for Dallas Fire and Rescue this afternoon in the Public Safety Committee, for those who are interested in continuing this conversation. Okay, Councilmember Resendez, please.
I don't have any questions. I think this is great and thorough and I've appreciated that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. So just in the last couple of minutes, I have just a couple of questions. One is, I think that this is a tremendous opportunity for us to partner with the DISD and with Dallas College and anyone else in really formalizing a program to become a civil employee. We could actually create a track. So whether it's working in departments that already have programs for P-TECH or some of the more technical skills, but from a managerial perspective and from a career aspirational perspective, if I remember correctly, when we were doing the retirement for Mr. Wilkinson and for so many of us, we actually all began as interns. And so I think that building out the apprenticeship program, an internship program with the city so that they imagine it, I would venture to guess that if you were to poll Dallas students, many of them would not say, hey, I want to go work for the city of Dallas, because they don't even know it exists as an employer. So I would love to see us look at some kind of a formal relationship with our school districts in Dallas College to see if we can create a curriculum around civil managerial level, the kind that requires a college degree kind of program. So that's one. I also think that this is an opportunity, once we complete the retention module and we get some hard numbers behind this, that if we could go to have potentially a full council briefing, I think it's really worth it, particularly before the budget period if we are going to have impacts on compensation. The last question that I also wanted to add, so I think the key reference point in this is on our slide 22 is in our gaps. So for the sake of the public and my colleagues, if we could just look at those gaps right now. And I know, because I know there's details about the uniform, right? It's not just 32 positions. And if you could clarify what's the difference between a position and a requisition, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, so a position is an individual budgeted position that typically has a position number 1, 2, 3, 4. Requisitions are the hiring mechanism that creates the posting within our NeoGov applicant tracking system. So it has its own unique number. So I distinguish to say for our uniform partners, typically we'll use one requisition to make multiple hires. And that's just because you would, if you're hiring a police, a fire entry class of 40 entry-level fire rescue officers, you wouldn't want 40 individual requisitions. You would do one blanket, then hire off of that. So that's why you see what seems to be a decreased number under the uniform positions, because that's typically how we hire for them.
So I'll just ask my last question, and you may not have it now, it may come back, and that is, how many positions do we have at the City of Dallas?
We will bring you back the number of budgeted positions in the city of Dallas. That is a number that was approved in the budget. We know that throughout the year, sometimes that changes. We may have some reclassifications. We may combine positions based on work experience and kind of what's happening within departments, but we can definitely give you the budgeted number of positions for 22-23.
And then the next question is, and how many open positions do we have to that number? So that the reason I'm asking these questions is because I think when we present to council, what we ought to present would be our goal. So if we have X% of open positions, we want to reduce that to Y over a certain period of time, and it's going to take all of the key elements that you presented in the opportunities slide of your SWOT to get there. And so if we have goals and measurements in this, I think it's going to be much easier. And then we can overlay all the very important racial equity work and the other things that we're doing. I think it'll be very helpful.
Yes. Thank you for the question. So we'll definitely plan to, back to our timeline, we'll come back in April to go into that retention discussion, and then in May, we'll come back with an update on how well we're doing with the strategies that we've laid out this year and what we're hoping to ask for going into the budget. And at that time, we'll present you with that data that we have.
Yeah, let's make sure that all of our goals are measurable.
Got it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, did you want to add one last thing, Ms. Arias?
Thank you. I just was going to say there is some detail in page 56 in the appendix showing field open and grand total, and that is from the system as of January 12th. So if you
Beautiful,
know-
that's, that's what we need to look at. Perfect, so if we want to get, ultimately, if we're currently at 24%, we want to get it to what's a reasonable number?
Yes.
20, et cetera. Okay, that's fantastic. So if there's no other last comments, questions, I want to thank you very much. Again, there was so much work that went into this, and I appreciate it very much. We're going to move on to our next presentation, which is our Financial Empowerment Programming Update and the Financial Empowerment Centers in locations across Dallas. So how do we spend that money that we've earned as employees?
Thank you, Chair Schultz and Committee. Liz Cedillo Pereira, Assistant City Manager. As Director Galashaw comes to the podium, Director Galashaw and Cruz Correa, Program Manager for the Office of Community Care, will be briefing. Cruz is a little slow today, making his way. OCC is providing an overview of the city's financial empowerment programs and the new locations of the financial empowerment centers. There's going to be a press conference, if you haven't heard, on 2/17 to talk about where you can access these resources. And we invite, of course, all councils, specifically our Workforce Education and Equity Committee members, to come and speak if you'd like. That's on the February 17th at 9 a.m. here at City Hall. And with that, I'll turn it over to Director Galashaw. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ACM Pereira. Jessica Galashaw, the Director of the Office of Community Care, and as Liz noted, I'm joined by Cruz Correa, who is our Manager of Community Care Services, specifically overseeing financial empowerment programs. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll cover the alignment of our program with the Racial Equity Plan, background of our work, and how we've been building up work around financial empowerment over the last several years. And then we'll talk specifically about our program framework and centers, as well as some aligned programs, including volunteer income tasks assistance program, which is currently underway right now, as well as talking about developing a strategic plan related to financial protections. So we'll get started with our financial empowerment alignment when it comes to racial equity plan. And as you'll see, we've aligned ourselves really closely with one of our big audacious goals around workforce and community development to be the most economically inclusive city by eliminating the wealth gap. So our program aligns really strongly with that, as well as several action targets. And specifically, our department has adopted a department equity measure related specifically to our FEC program around ensuring that 400 of the target 1,000 clients that we serve every year at least are in one of 5 zip codes that we've identified as having high levels of need through the REP. Next up is a bit of a history. It's kind of a long and detailed history of how we've come to do this work. Starting with our initial work with Cities for Financial Empowerment back in 2018. We've built on that over the years through our Financial Navigators program that we were able to launch in late 2020 during the pandemic. We also accepted grants from CFE, which is a national organization that works with municipalities to provide support for financial empowerment efforts, to support both a planning initiative related to financial protection, as well as, of course, our FEC centers themselves. We then entered a multi-month planning process with concurrent with some pilot FEC work we were already doing and partners we had identified. We actually entered a planning process with them to help realign our work with their best practices. We still and are currently receiving regular technical support and guidance, as well as numerous resources, tracking, training, and a whole host of other benefits through that partnership. And we were able to do what we call our soft launch back in April of 2022, fully aligned with the CFE best practices. And now we are preparing to move into what we're calling our hard launch or big launch, as we have added a new partnership to our program and additional sites. So moving on to our next slide, I'm actually going to go ahead and turn it over to Cruz Correa to take it from here.
Thank you, and good morning, Madam Chair, and thank you for giving us an opportunity to present on the financial empowerment programming within the Office of Community Care. Again, my name is Cruz Correa. I am the program manager for the Financial Empowerment Centers. And so, as you can see in the slide, the COVID-19 pandemic in many ways put a spotlight on issues our community faces. It also presented us an opportunity for renewed attention to a comprehensive and inclusive approach to financial empowerment. And so when I read that only 44% of Americans can cover a 1,000 unplanned expense through savings, I personally, it's shocking to me every single time that statistic is read out loud. I've been in financial empowerment work for a few years, and it varies from, that specific statistic varies from year to year on a couple of basis points, but over the last decade, it's pretty much remained the same. Some of the statistics that you see on this slide also are really kind of entangled together. So what I mean by that is if few people don't have the savings to cover an emergency, it's going to increase stress in the household, and it may affect other areas as well, such as being able to make payments on time, not getting the late fees for those types of payments, and things like that. And so another key kind of indicator of some of the work that we're trying to accomplish and assist residents on is moving residents from subprime credit scores and deep subprime credit scores to a more to a credit score that would allow individuals to access main banking services and achieve a safe, affordable credit. Next slide, please. And so the financial empowerment is really built on the framework is really built upon the integration of professional financial counseling with various social services at key entry points. Financial empowerment in general is about building knowledge and skills that help residents make informed decisions that lead to increase in supporting household financial stability and upward socioeconomic mobility. Through this framework, we are able to assist residents already in the continuum of care channel. The focus is on banking access, credit inclusion, asset building, and addressing consumer financial protection issues with income support services through client assistance and other various empowerment programming. Next slide. So what are financial empowerment centers? Financial empowerment centers and the FEC is about providing financial counseling to all individuals and residents of the city of Dallas by professionally trained financial counselors. And so financial empowerment centers will be located across the city of Dallas through our partner providers and through co-locations. To be able to access the service, a resident just must be over the age of 18, and there are no income limits to receive this service, and they also must be a resident of the city of Dallas. FEC services in general are individualized per the resident, per the person seeking that service, and that is specific because everybody has different issues and are trying to accomplish different goals, and so we must meet our residents where they're at when we're providing financial counseling services. From a strategic standpoint, the FEC is strategically partnered and embedded within other social services, and so we do that as a way to not only offer the services to people that are in need, but also to address any other barriers that they may be facing at that time to achieve financial stability. Through those partnerships, we're able to provide incoming and outgoing referrals. We have integration agreements, data sharing agreements, and co-case management agreements with those strategic partners. Funding for the Dallas Financial Empowerment Center really started in 2021 through having the $20,000 plan grant in place, and also a $250,000 implementation grant, which we are still in the process of receiving. We started in 2021 first with our first partner providers, IRC, which is International Rescue Committee, and City Square. And in 2022, after we aligned our financial empowerment program with CFE standards. We were also able to bring on a new partner, Wings, in which we were able to actually expand the financial empowerment centers as well. And so the soft launch actually started in mid-April of 2022. During that time frame, we were partnering with International Rescue Committee and City Square. We were able to serve 152 residents during the soft launch period and providing 341 individualized financial counseling service. To give you an idea of the type of people that we're actually serving, the median income of each individual for all the residents that we served is $33,000. And so, as you can imagine, because of the social service integration, we're able to reach the individuals that really need these types of services. Some of the outcomes that we achieved during this time frame are reduced non-mortgage debt by 10%, adopting new savings behaviors, access to other public support programs, opening safe and affordable bank accounts and other products, and also using those bank accounts actively. These are not all the metrics and outcomes that we are currently trying to achieve. Another one that would be a big one is also increasing and helping increase people's credit scores by at least 35 points. So during the soft pilot launch, we did have some challenges, and I think that is reflected on some of the numbers that we have achieved so far. Specifically with staffing and retention, once we had our partner providers in place, we had financial counselors that were trained by CFE standards. That training alone takes about 8 weeks to become a professional financial counselor and to be, to have the expertise and knowledge needed for debt management, retirement, other types of services. And so when we lose a financial counselor, the next person that we hire, we also has to get trained to meet those CFE standards. And so when we lose somebody, it kind of affects us for a few months. Another challenge that we had is we did have a partner that had an organizational strategic realignment. And when that took place, they requested to cancel their contract, and so therefore we were without that partner provider during that time frame. That happened in late October, and we at that time we were also bringing in a new partner, Wings, and so we were also working with them to get them trained and get them aligned and ready to start serving our residents. So the Dallas FSC expansion, so we're really excited about this. We're officially announcing it on February 17th as, which is this Friday at 9 a.m. We're excited because of the fact that the services we're going to be providing are strategically located in those racial equity partner areas or prioritized areas in Oak Cliff, Vickery Meadows, Pleasant Grove, and another place. So we went from having just 2 financial counselors to having 14. That's going to increase the capacity to serve many more residents many times over. And it also helps us when it comes to the challenges of making sure that we have enough people to work if we do end up having some turnover for staffing. International Rescue Committee is the partner provider that we've been working with the longest. As you notice in the slide, International Rescue Committee specifically works with refugees, asylum seekers, victims of human trafficking, survivors of torture, and other immigrants. And so their main service area is really about settlement, community integration, and development, immigration services. In their economic empowerment programming is where you will find the Financial Empowerment Center. And so it's not the only type of service that they provide, but as you can see, we fit very nicely with the other type of work that they're providing, and it helps with the people that they serve. Wings is our newest partner provider. Wings provides a full suite of tailored services to empower women and families. They do have a nurse-family partnership, which is really geared towards single mothers. who are first-time, will be having a child for the first time. Their Financial Coaching Institute also is set up to provide training services for financial coaches across the city and North Texas. And then their Economic Advancement Program is where you'll find our Financial Empowerment Center as well, and where they also provide benefit screening, and they also have opportunities for residents to increase their credit scores through credit building access. On this map, you'll see our Dallas FEC locations and where they're strategically placed. As I mentioned earlier, they're going to be in Oak Cliff, Pleasant Grove, Redbird Mall, and in the Vickery Meadows area. We are also working on provided limited services or limited availability services at 2 co-location sites within the MLK Center and the West Dallas Multipurpose Center. As we continue to work with financial empowerment work, we will be strategically aligning with other social service organizations to also add additional co-locations. The Dallas FEC is really built on collaboration. That's really the name of the game when it comes to financial empowerment work. These are some of the internal partners that we have currently within the community courts, our community centers, public libraries, Office of Equity Inclusion, and our small business center. You know, being as financial empowerment work really affects all residents, the Financial Empowerment Center can really align with just about any type of social service out there. And so, for example, Crossroads, which is one of our external partners, their main mission is to help individuals in health. Foundation Communities and the Concilio are other strategic partners that provide different types of services as well. And for example, Salvation Army, has a kind of every type of service that you can imagine. So, being located within these within their space, within their office space, really helps when it comes to trying to serve the people that we're trying to serve. The Financial Inclusion Roundtable in particular is a collaboration that includes the FDIC and the Dallas Federal Reserve, as well as United Way and other organizations that are essentially stakeholders when it comes to financial empowerment work. So there's a lot of room for us to grow and to really bring this program to the front. Moving on to our Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, if you are not aware of what VITA or Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program is, it's an IRS program that's been around for over 50 years in which they provide free tax services. It really helps residents save money. The tax preparers themselves are actually IRS certified, which would not be said by all tax preparers. So the error rate when it comes to providing those tax preparation services is really low compared to the general tax preparer population. They also assist in identifying earned income tax credits, and they reduce the use of costly refund anticipation checks at that time. And they actually also help residents get banking access so that they get their refunds, direct deposited as soon as possible. The goals that are established for our volunteer income tax assistance with our partner providers, Foundation Community, is to serve 25,000 plus residents, and that's going to be through a combination of financial education classes, providing the actual tax return, tax preparer returns. 2,500 of them are going to be for limited English proficiency. 60%, according to Foundation Communities, 60% of the individuals that they serve are Spanish speaking. And so they're really looking for, bilingual volunteers and working to shore that up. But we're talking over $5 million in received in refunds and over $1 million saved in fees. When we're talking about VITA, though, there's a huge opportunity to really help residents in this area. In 2019, according to IRS data, there was over 420,000 individuals that actually paid for their tax return. An average tax return costs about $220. And so those individuals would have been eligible for VITA services, which would have saved them money. When you add all that up, we're talking about $100 million that are left on the table for residents. And so this program in particular is very strong and can really provide a huge boost and benefit to residents in the city of Dallas. So there are, I believe, 8 locations that are within the city of Dallas. Some of them, as you can notice, are within City of Dallas facilities. They will also have a mobile site that will be in different areas on a certain schedule throughout the city of Dallas. VITA in particular does partner with the FEC, and so we are going to be working together on those programs to essentially provide financial counseling service for people that are interested that go through the VITA tax preparation service. And so, you know, we are looking to expand the locations given the opportunity to do so within more City of Dallas facilities. The last thing that we'll be talking about today is the Consumer Financial Protection Initiative. We received a grant in late 2021 to work on a consumer financial protection strategic plan, a comprehensive consumer financial protection strategic plan. The process is really started off with an environment scan with internal and external stakeholders to formulate some key priorities and really discuss the issues that are affecting residents. At which point, you know, we will be developing a strategic plan and receive feedback from our external and internal stakeholders, as well as yourself, and hopefully develop some good recommendations that can be put in place to help the city, you know, improve our consumer financial protection initiatives. And so the environmental scan was completed between June and September of 2022. These are some of the internal and external stakeholders. We had 8 different internal departments that was a part of this process and 11 different external stakeholders that helped provide some of the critical issues that we reviewed. As you can imagine, when you ask the public and internal and external stakeholders to help with identifying critical issues, they came up with a lot of them. And so we actually ended up looking into 28 different critical issues. And based off of that list, we had to pare it down to really, you know, try to focus on what's really going to help our residents and what's practical for the city of Dallas to, you know, put into place. And so the key priorities that we identified was really about the consumer complaint intake process within the city of Dallas, specific vulnerable populations with senior and immigrant communities as they are targeted for fraud, abuse, the tax preparers and the case for transparency. And this was actually one of the big issues that we found when we looked into VITA and other tax preparers and how there really is no oversight when it comes to tax preparations if you're not like a CPA and what have you. We also discussed equitable access to safe and affordable credit. It's an elephant in the room. The city of Dallas has done so much work around this already, but there's still some more that we can do that we think could help. And then proactive enforcement of consumer protection ordinances. And so it's really just about being proactive. And so hopefully there's some room for improvement on that front as well. And so our next steps with the Dallas Financial Empowerment Center, as I mentioned, we are going to be doing the expansion launch on Friday. What that means for us is we're going to be marketing, looking for the residents. It's not going to just be, you know, we're not just going to be working with internal referrals that are from our partner providers. We're really going to be out in the community and seeking to work with individuals. We've also been selected as part of a cohort with the National League of Cities, Fines and Fees and Cohorts in partnership with the Office of Equity and Inclusion. And then we will continue to expand our strategic partnerships. I think that's going to be a huge piece to the success of the Financial Empowerment Center. For VITA, we're also going to be working on those strategic partnerships and alignments to help them recruit volunteers and to get to more residents to provide that free service. And in doing so, we will be working on communications and marketing within the city of Dallas as well. And for the Consumer Financial Protection Initiative, now that we've identified the key priorities, we're going to be seeking feedback on that and also drafting a plan that's inclusive of recommendations for consideration. Thank you.
Did you want to?
No, that wraps up our presentation.
That
Thank you
was
so
an-
much, Cruz, and we welcome any questions.
It was an excellent presentation. It was thorough and well done, and it's clear that you have a clear understanding of your subject matter, for sure, and we're lucky to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to start in the virtual world this time, and I'll go in reverse. So, Councilmember Resendez, do you have any questions or comments?
Just a couple, and I agree with you that it was a thorough presentation. I'm excited about moving forward with this. I'm hoping to hear a little bit more about the marketing plan. You know, how exactly are we planning on reaching out to people, try to find people? Talk to me about the language piece. I mean, I'm assuming that some of the outreach is going to be done in Spanish. But I just want someone to elaborate on that, please.
Thank you for the question, Councilman Resendez. Yes, you're absolutely correct. One of the priorities that we had when we were looking for a new partner provider, and one of the reasons we selected Wings was because of their ability to have bilingual financial counselors. That was a huge piece to what we were doing. In terms of the marketing and communication, it's really going to be a community effort along with the City of Dallas and other entities that are in Dallas. And so I had mentioned the Financial Inclusion Roundtable. When you're working with organizations like the FDIC, the Dallas Federal Reserve, they have a lot of I guess, pull with banks and other organizations that will help promote the Financial Empowerment Center, along with strategically aligning with those specific organizations that already provide this type of work. For example, housing, home ownership, asset building, credit building. So from a marketing plan, it's going to be a community lift. Because we're going to have our own marketing, but we're also going to be working with our partners to promote the service itself.
Okay, and what will success look like for all of this? Is there X amount of people that we'd like to serve per week, per month, or something like that?
So our goal is to serve 1,000 residents per year, and so even though it's 1,000 residents, but the real success actually comes in what they achieve. And so each individual is going to come to the table with goals that they have in mind for their own household financial stability. That typically includes debt reduction, increased savings, and increasing their credit scores. Those three metrics in particular are being tracked within our customer management system. And we will be able to report on those as time goes on and people start actually achieving some of these outcomes. As you could imagine, when it comes to financial empowerment work, it takes time. It's not a from month to month kind of situation where you're able to just increase your credit score by doing one or two things. It does take time, but that's really where the success is going to come from. And I can give you a couple examples of some of the people that we've already worked with. And so one example of that, for example, is an individual that was working with International Rescue Committee who was actually paying $700 per month because he did not have a vehicle or the credit to get a vehicle. And so he was paying $700 out of pocket just to get to school in Arlington, UTA. And he was, paying Uber, Lyft drivers. And so after he went through the program, he was able to increase his credit score, and he was able to obtain a safe and affordable loan for a car note, and now has a vehicle and is able to move around without having to pay that $700 going to Uber and Lyft drivers. So to me, that's what we would consider success. Another individual who is not from the U.S. came as an immigrant and did not understand our U.S. financial system, and so doesn't understand credit scores, doesn't understand the banking, and so she's the sole breadwinner of their household. And through the Financial Empowerment Center, she was able to open up a checking account, open up a savings account, and really start thinking about what their financial household stability looks like in the short, medium, and long term.
Awesome. Those are really great examples. And like I said, I'm excited about moving forward with this and looking forward to hearing a lot more similar examples as we move forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Resendez, if you don't mind, I just wanted to add one comment around the outreach. I do want to let you know that we're working closely with our comms team internally. So the press conference is going to be the start of that, but we're also going to be providing information and materials that you all as council members can share through your respective district newsletters, and we hope that you will help us promote the availability of these services as well.
Sounds good. You can count on me to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I also think in terms of the comms, and we can put this conversation to bed, our police department work closely with all the apartment crime watch groups. And so if there's posters or materials that could go out to the multifamily property managers, they work with them constantly. And so I think our police department could be an excellent partner in getting out information for for VITA as well as the empowerment centers. All right, Chair McGue.
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Chair Blackman? Council members here. Moreno, did you have something?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. First, thank you for that story, that testimony. It really is inspiring to see how many people we can help in the future. It's really meaningful data that you shared with us, the experiences that our most vulnerable populations experience every single day. I am curious, I know at some point prior to me being on council, we explored predatory lending and don't know where we are currently with that ordinance.
So yes, I'm aware of that, those conversations, and that's definitely something that is discussed. So when we look at the recommendations related to the key priorities, one of the areas is around the equitable access to safe and affordable credit. So I think that is something that could be captured within that priority area if we're looking to go deeper into the financial protections aspect. However, as far as commentary on the specific ordinance and the status of it, I think that I would have to probably defer to the city attorney's office for specifics in that regard, and I don't know that they're necessarily prepared for that at this moment, but I can certainly go back and have that conversation with them.
Sure, no, that's fine. We can hear from them at a later time. With that, something that I see too often are apartment move-in specials, doing a month off, 500 off, which don't want to cause any harm to those residents who are being taking advantage of these situations. But we also see kids moving from school to school, causing a disruption in the home. And so have we ever looked at working with our apartment association or with apartment managers in trying to, again, wanting individuals to be able to take advantage of opportunities that come to them with whether it be a month off or, deposits being waived. Maybe we need to weigh the pros and cons about it before we, look too deep into it. But I think it's something that affects a lot of households.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's very valuable feedback. And, I think we heard from United Way, was it last month, talking about with Up Together some of the work that they're doing specifically around the efforts to support families and try to prevent those mid-year moves. As far as working specifically with the Apartment Association to talk about those relationships, I can't say that we've had that conversation directly, but I do think that the awareness of the issues that are kind of driven by those mid-year moves and how that can affect financial and housing stability, as well as, of course, the education outcomes, is definitely something we're aware of and we're having conversations with partners about. And we've also been looking at through some of the racial equity projects that we are looking at bringing forward in the next couple of months.
Thank you. And I'll just close with the amazing best practices that have been initiated, such as mobile banking centers. actual banks that go into neighborhoods where banks don't exist with full-fledged ATMs, and a banking center to get those financial literacy classes, building on credit scores. So just thank you for what y'all are doing each and every single day, because it's truly impacting the residents of Dallas in a positive way. And so thank y'all for your hard work.
Chair Thomas.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I've been around long enough to remember when this conversation first began. And so to see it actually begin to come to fruition is really, really exciting. Just a few questions. First of all, is WINGS a community-based organization, or tell me a little bit more about it?
Do you want to talk about them?
Yes, they are. Actually, WINGS used to be formerly the YWCA, and so they've been around for over 100 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so they recently became WINGS, and they are a nonprofit 501c3 organization.
I'll also add, just because the name, it does reference women, but they don't exclusively or specifically target female clients. They'll serve any client, and that was actually really important when we did our solicitation to identify partners. And WINGS has actually been doing financial empowerment kind of aligned work for quite some time. So getting them on board has been just a real booster shot in terms of getting the work moving forward, because they are just poised and really ready to help us grow rapidly.
And based on looking at the presentation and locations, I assume they have different individuals who are maybe the director or whatever at each particular location. Is that currently how things are?
That's actually, yeah, that's correct. So there's going to be a Financial Empowerment Center director, and then at each location, you have a lead financial coach that acts like as a manager for that specific location, and 3 other financial counselors providing services.
Okay. What do they currently have?
Currently, each location is going to have 4 financial.
Hold on. I want you to listen to the question. What do they not what are they going to have? What do they currently have?
4 financial counselors at each location.
Okay, so each location has a financial counselor.
4.
Each one has 4 counselors.
So
Okay.
that's specific to the WINGS program. The IRC program is a little bit smaller in scale. I think they only have 2.
Right, okay. Well, I'm in particular concerned about the Redbird location that's either in my district or neighbor in my district. So if you have a point of contact, if you could get that to my office, and that way I could have a conversation with them, I would greatly appreciate it.
Sure.
My next question, and Councilman Resendez used market. I'm gonna use a different term. I'm gonna use one which is one of our new E's, which I'm concerned about, engagement. I think there's a difference in marketing and engagement and outreach. And so who will be responsible for the actual community outreach for the centers that are in each location?
I will be responsible for that outreach, as well as each organization specific to that site.
Okay, I tell you, let's sit down and have a conversation. I
Absolutely.
think I can provide some insight as well. I think that's all I had this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great, and I think that may be a suggestion for each of the council members where you have a location, because they certainly know their community very, very well. Thank you. Okay, Chair Narvaez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So thank you for the presentation, very thorough. When it comes to financial literacy, are you in any partnerships with the Dallas Public Library?
We're currently working with them.
Okay, so are y'all able to offer these classes in the libraries as well? Because it's a place that's safe for a lot of people because they know where the library is. They don't always know where some of these centers are. So is that what we're trying to do? Or?
Yeah, that's correct. That's exactly right. We want to be able to offer financial education classes within public library systems.
Wonderful. And then the next thing I wanted to ask is, are any of the classes offered in any other languages? So especially Spanish, because at our libraries, we also offer at certain key libraries English language learner courses, and we all know that one of the biggest drivers of poverty is not being able to speak and understand English in our country, right? In our state, in our city. So being able to do the classes as well is also teaching them financial literacy, because if the language is already a barrier, now imagine a bank or, them not understanding financial literacy and how finances work here in the United States.
We will be offering classes in Spanish as well, and in particular, our partner provider, International Rescue Committee, has 24 different languages that get translated through that organization, and so there's going to be a lot of opportunity for us to be able to disseminate information in a range of languages that we hope to get out to as many folks as possible.
Excellent, because you just answered what my next question was going to be, is what other languages and how deep can we go? So 24 is really excellent. And then my last question, Madam Chair, is the partnerships with banks, credit unions, anything but a payday lender. We just, for the first time in 20 years, got a bank in West Dallas, Frost Bank, which I'm so thoroughly excited that I moved all my accounts to it in order to show support. And, we finally have one here in our neighborhood, because for 20 years it was literally the PLS across the street. So now we need a few other things still, but this was huge. But are there partnerships with those individuals as they're moving into neighborhoods? I can only speak about Frost because they just opened in West Dallas. I know they're getting ready to open a new branch in Bachman, and they're planning new openings all over the city. Like, this might be an opportunity as they're going into more divested communities that might help that partnership, like financial literacy and the bank. Like, because some people, this is a very foreign concept, a bank, because they've either never experienced it, never had the ability to do it, or like we were talking about credit scores, they just can't get an account in a bank. And so are there opportunities to work with certain banks as well, and or credit unions?
Yes, 100%. We're looking at these partnerships specifically through the Community Reinvestment Act, and the opportunities that align with them passing that specific exam, which would be through education and investment in particular. So even though we haven't named a specific bank that we are working with, we are speaking to a lot of them in terms of what they can provide for the financial education piece, and also bank-on initiatives to help residents have access to banking products.
Excellent. And then, I'm sorry, one more follow-up on banks, because there are a lot of banks that are now just online. They don't have branches anywhere. Their branches inside, your cell phone or your computer, however you want to explain that. So are there opportunities to also work with, or you have reached out to any of these online banks, just so that there's diversity people just have different comfort levels with what they do with their money, right? Where they want to save it or store it or what have you. And I'm seeing that a lot more with the younger folks as they're coming up. They're like, they don't want to walk into a store, a bank, a building. It's like they want to do everything inside of the phone. So is there opportunity for that as well? There's
certainly going to be an opportunity for that. I can't say that I have personally started working with online financial institutions. The focus has been on the ones that are present in our communities that we want to make sure that they are stepping up to the plate and being a part of this work by being there.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much for all the answers. And again, the presentation was very thorough and complete. I don't think you could have put more into it without us still asking questions, but it was really, really excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, we really, really appreciate your being here, and I think everybody's very excited about this potential. So thank you for your hard work. All right, we're going to move on to the briefing memos, and I'm going to take all of them, and I'm going to go around and see if anyone has any questions about any of them. All right, so I'm going to start with Chair Blackman.
Thank you. I have a question on the Small Business Center memo. I can't remember which number it was.
Item D, thank you.
Okay, so I'm getting the metrics with the percentages, but what is the absolute number of the pool of people that you're looking to service?
Joyce Williams,
Okay,
Williams, Director of the Small Business Center. Thank you for the question, Chair Blackman. And the absolute number for the total for the two contracts is 140. participants that will be served.
So it's 140 people, and we want 80%, 80 to 85% to complete it. And then the employment is 75%, but is employed mean just get a job or hold the job for X amount of time? Or is there another metric that you're looking at that down the road?
Yes, the employment means 75% of those that will complete and get a certification will get a certification, will be employed within that field. We made it very specific because of the fact that historically what has happened with some of the grants, they've been employed in related fields and not direct fields. Again, the other part of the metrics will also be 180 days of retainment of that employment within that field. And also one of the things that we're also including in this is a way to, again, implement our tracking system that we came before you at the last briefing, which was to talk about 12 months of being able to track them, looking at the impact of results and the economic impact on the city. So we're also looking at going further than that, especially when we start talking about upskilling. Chair Blackman, I know that that's a passion of yours to make sure that people have an opportunity to also increase to advanced areas as they move up. And so as we're looking at Dallas College, looking at not only getting those certifications, but also going toward their associate's degree of applied science, but also looking at the baccalaureate program for the behavioral health science technician as well.
Okay. So when you do the 104, are we putting, is this another program that we're actually, are we creating a program, or are we tapping into another existing program?
Well, with Dallas College, of course, they already have existing certifications for IT, but with the behavioral technician specialist program, we're actually helping them to create this program and develop it. So it already has the curriculum. And because of the increase of the number of students who have autism and being able to relate to that, and we see that that is an issue that is developing, and so therefore it's an opportunity for us to create this and upskilling.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair Blackman. Chair McGue? Councilmember Resendez?
No questions.
Anybody else? Any other questions or comments? I did have one question about item F, the senior, and this was asked from another council member. They wanted to just know what is the relationship with the county, as I think apparently there's been conversation for the senior dental program over time. This is the senior dental program over time to begin to move that to the county. So I was just curious where that stood.
Hello. Thank you for the question. So the county does not fund or provide the senior dental program services. The program actually provides services that are critically important because they're also not eligible for Medicare and Medicaid, of course, unless they're of kind of a critical nature where they are specifically considered health care. So this service is really targeted specifically to provide preventive services, regular consistent dental care access, and even dentures for low-income seniors. But no, the county does not fund the program, and they have not expressed an interest or willingness to do so.
Gotcha. Thank you. I just wanted to just make a general comment. I think that our city is offering an untold number of amazing services out to our community, whether it's from financial empowerment to senior dental care. And I don't know how much the public really knows about this. So if I may challenge our Office of Community Care, because you're sort of the umbrella for so many of these things, to really perhaps over time, this isn't a mandate, but maybe we could begin to reimagine how we communicate this service offerings within the city so that our residents can not only take full advantage of them and, really segmented marketing strategies for certain programs, but a general one so that the general public can understand where some of our grant money, some of our federal money, and then as well as, of course, some of their own tax money is going to help make Dallas a better place to live. So I don't know that we've ever done that comprehensively, but it might be something to think about doing moving forward.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. We will definitely look at that.
All right. Are there any other comments or questions or suggestions? Well, congratulate to all of you. Congratulations to everyone on this team. You're doing great work. Thank you. And at that 10:47, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.